New developments in the investigation into a high school cheerleader found dead on a cruise ship. There have been questions about why she and her stepbrother, who the family says is a suspect, were sharing a room on the trip.
We're learning new details about 18-year-old Anna Kepner's final hours on a Carnival cruise ship.
Did you recently go on a cruise?
This is Chantel Kepner. She is the stepmother of Anna Kepner.
Where was their room in relation to your room?
Right across the hall. You walked out my door, their door was right in front of it.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I
Call me old-fashioned, but isn't there something screwed up about two parents fighting over custody of a teenager suspected of murder? I mean, if it was me, I think I'd be more than happy to relinquish custody. Maybe that makes me a bad parent.
The stepmother of the cheerleader found dead on a family cruise is speaking out about what happened on that fateful trip.
At some point, did you discover that one of the children had passed away?
Yes.
Chantel Kepner says her 18-year-old stepdaughter Anna shared a cabin on the cruise ship Carnival Horizon with her brother and her 16-year-old stepbrother.
What's also interesting to note is Anna's father and stepmother arriving in court hand in hand, as if they are still very much together. And you would almost think that this sort of situation where it seems like the stepmother supports her son, and you think Anna's father does as well. So them holding hands on the way to court, sort of demonstrating solidarity, is really interesting. And one does wonder what is going on behind the scenes. Is it as happy a picture behind the scene?
When a couple starts keeping score, there is no winning. It's only degrees of losing.
Because remember, what's going on here is basically this is about a custody battle. And so there's a big war going on between the stepmother and the previous parent of the step-sibling. And it's the father of Anna that is basically sitting in on that particular custody hearing. And could he soon be in a similar position, being in court, but this time in opposition to Chantel? What is clear is there's a very toxic divorce that is on the cards. You know, I'm guessing it's one of those tit-for-tat divorces that aren't really about common sense, but about winning and losing. It's a sort of trashy War of the Roses set in Florida.
When I watch you eat, when I look at you lately, I just want to smash your face in.
Smash my face.
According to ABC News, the stepbrothers' parents, Thomas Hudson and Chantel Hudson, are fighting over custody and have in-court documents referring to the stepbrother, who's a minor, as a suspect in Kepner's death. The suspect's stepbrother has been living with Chantel Hudson's relatives since the family returned from the cruise. Chantel Hudson said that she's been informed it's possible investigators could charge her son with a crime as officials await results from toxicology tests. So this is really telling us what the holdup really is. The investigators are awaiting toxicology, and I think this can take 4 to 6 weeks typically. Her attorney also informed the court they're waiting on psychological and psychiatric testing, so that they're waiting that as well. Now, isn't it interesting talking about a toxic family, toxic relationships between parents? Meanwhile, we're also talking about toxicology, that people have been ingesting these substances potentially to deal with these horrible feelings, probably resulting around the family situation. You have this toxic feeling on the one side, and then ingesting these substances in order to soothe them away. It's quite an interesting sort of mirror to that. And all three of these areas, the toxicology, the psychological and psychiatric testing, these may have a bearing on culpability in terms of mitigation, because we're dealing with a minor. It's also possible the medication this kid was on could have mixed with alcohol and led to behavioral aberrations. According to TampaBay.com, a 16-year-old boy who is the subject of an FBI investigation into the death of his older sister on a Carnival cruise ship last month never had permission from his father to go on the trip, and his dad has said in family court papers that he's accused his ex-wife of failing to supervise the teen. And that, in a legal sense, is a really important accusation. Is there any merit to that? And we're going to be dealing with that in this analysis. But before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Just a quick shout out to Chris Flanagan 5498. Thanks very much for your contribution. If you guys want me to continue going into depth in the Anna Kepner case, please also show your appreciation. It's kind of difficult doing the Anna Kepner videos alongside the Ramsey videos, which take up so much time. So if you'd like to encourage that, please do so. And let's get started.
And was she given the option of staying in another room?
All three of the kids were in.
And would that room have been with Grandma and Grandpa?
Correct.
And they didn't want to do that?
No, they wanted to stay together.
Did they all get along?
Yeah, the three of them are like the three amigos. They're best friends.
The three amigos were best friends, and yet the one brother went by himself taking photos. Anna said that she was feeling ill and excused herself, and of course she ended up dead. So is that true? Were they really the three amigos? Or is it true what the boyfriend said, that Anna was actually occasionally scared of her stepbrother?
Anna Kepner's body was found underneath the bed of her stateroom the morning before the Carnival Horizon returned to Miami. Anna Kepner's father was also in court, but he did not testify and declined to speak afterwards.
Well, I'm noticing so many clues in all of these little snippets of information. I would say that the biological father is right, that the mother didn't supervise her son, but equally, Anna's father also didn't seem to supervise his daughter either. Do you see, when you're dealing with a minor, where a minor is a potential murderer, supervision becomes a factor. If there's a lack of supervision, neglect becomes a factor. Also, if this teenager showed certain behavior patterns, including jumping on or harassing or frightening his stepsister, didn't either of the custodial parents know about this? If they didn't, why didn't they? That is a potential case of neglect or not showing necessary care. If they did know and didn't take precautions, that's also neglect. Let's go back to TampaBay.com. The teenage boy and his 18-year-old sister, Anna Kepner, were also allowed to share a room aboard the cruise ship, and the boy's mother failed to properly supervise the teen. That's according to Thomas Hudson. That's what he said in a court motion seeking a greater visitation with the two children he shares with his ex-wife. So he's obviously got a motive in making some of these accusations. It will be interesting to see what Anna's biological father says about this. Would he agree that there was a failure to properly supervise? According to the Daily Mail, an emergency custody hearing in Brevard County, Florida, was told that FBI investigators are considering whether the boy, who is currently in the care of an unnamed relative, whether he should be prosecuted in federal or state court. Now, what that tells us is that this is a case of not if he will be arrested and charged, but when. According to the Daily Mail, she conceded that neither she nor Christopher had checked in on Anna and the boys after they retired to their cabin around 7 p.m. on November 6th. And I suppose that raises the question, what time did they retire to their cabin? And if it was very late, wasn't that as a result of revelry and drinking? Right? This is huge. According to the Daily Mail, Anna was declared dead at 11:17 a.m. the next day in international waters between Mexico and Florida. So for almost 16 hours, no one knew where Anna was, from 7 p.m. to 11 a.m. And this is starting to feel a lot like the Amanda Knox case. Is that something that is reasonable, that you would just not know where someone is and not make an effort to find them? According to the Daily Mail, Chantal told Thomas's lawyer, Scott Smith, she only drank 2 pina coladas and a glass of wine during the entire cruise. Do you believe that? Also, if Anna had consumed alcohol, Chantal said she didn't know. As for the 2 boys, she said, I'm sure they were not. So the story from Chantal is basically that no one was really drinking. Not her, not the boys, and not Anna. Do you believe that? According to the Daily Mail, Chantal also revealed that her 16-year-old son takes a daily cocktail of medication for ADHD and insomnia. He had skipped 2 doses of the insomnia drug prior to Anna's death, she added. This is where the boy's psychological and psychiatric history are important, and also how these medications might react with alcohol. It's also clear from the fact that the mother didn't give the boy his medication that there may be dereliction of her duty in that aspect as well. According to the Daily Mail, Judge Michelle Studstill denied Thomas's request for custody after Chantal said there was no way her suspect son would be allowed to return home. The boy had fallen asleep without needing it the first night, needing the medication, and Chantal had gone to sleep without giving it to him on the second. Judge Michelle Studstill asked Chantal's legal team whether there was any prospect of the accused teenager being allowed to return to the 3-bed home Chantal and Christopher share in Titusville, Florida. When she heard there was no chance of that happening, the judge decided there wasn't any risk to the girl and she should remain with her mom. This suggests that the stepbrother is already in a kind of state of suspended arrest. It's just not official. Now, Thomas and Chantal Hudson split in November 2022, but have spent the past 3 years warring over custody of their kids. Chantal relocated to Titusville in April 2024 to live with Christopher. So that is when this mixed family situation started. And she took her 2 youngest kids to form a blended household with his 3 children. So it was 5 kids in all. Anna, her 14-year-old brother, and 9-year-old sister. In other words, they have been a blended family for barely a year, long enough for the stepbrother to develop feelings for Anna, but also long enough for the clock to start counting down on when Anna would be out of his reach, when she would, when would be the moment she went to college. And think also about the cruise coming to an end. That was the end of that opportunity as well. He must have felt that the cruise was his now or never opportunity. Absent from the group was her older son, Andrew, 18, who told today's hearing that he was so resistant to the move he tried multiple times to climb out of the car en route. And this kind of gives you the impression that this kid was really not enjoying just how toxic the situation was, that he wanted to do anything to avoid being part of it. And so he says, this is so important. I was put in a chokehold and held against the seat, he testified. They held me against the seat until I couldn't fight back anymore. And who is he talking about? He's talking about his own mother and stepfather. And so surely the younger brother witnessed this in the car, this form of control and restraint. And the question is, didn't he adopt it himself? He'd seen his own family member do it, so wasn't it second nature that he would do it too? Meanwhile, Chantal and Christopher insist that they merely restrained the boy for his own safety. This is an example of questionable violence used by parents and it being absorbed, conditioned, learned, possibly by the progeny in this case, with fatal consequences. And this could also play into this whole idea of neglect or not proper care, right? It was eventually agreed that Andrew would stay with his dad in Brooksville, north of Tampa, and he didn't accompany his siblings on the November cruise. We also know that the 14-year-old brother walked around the ship taking photos, leaving Anna and her stepbrother alone in their cabin. Now, if the elder brother had gone along on this cruise, I doubt whether anything would have happened. Anyway, when the younger brother left and the two were left in the cabin together, the stepbrother must have figured he had a few minutes to make his move. Remember also, this ship was going to dock in Miami quite soon as well. So that was going to bring to an end this particular opportunity for him. But then when he was rebuffed in this sort of him trying desperately to take advantage of this little window, I think he insisted. By the time the younger boy returned, of course, it was all over. Anna wasn't only dead, but basically buried and hidden beneath the bed. The question is, did he have help? Did anyone assist him in covering this up? When the younger boy returned, he couldn't see Anna, but presumed she was staying up late with the grown-ups and went to sleep, according to the source. And so a big question here is, where were the grown-ups throughout that night? It wasn't until the next day when the two boys got up and headed to breakfast that the family realized Anna was missing. That's their story, but is that true? Sources say a medical emergency was announced over the public address system, prompting Christopher to race to his daughter's cabin, where he walked in to find a cleaning crew had just discovered her body. This is also incredible, that none of the family members announced an emergency. It was actually the ship's crew who announced it. And there is also this. Chantal said that the room she was sharing with Christopher and his 9-year-old daughter was directly across the hallway from the teen's cabin. You heard her say you walked out the door and their door was right in front of it. So why was it so hard to check on Anna, especially if she wasn't feeling well, and especially first thing the next morning? Chantal's lawyer, Millicent Athanason, I think we've got a picture of her. She was tight-lipped about the details during questioning, but conceded about the potential charges. Anna's grandparents, Jeff and Barbara Kepner, were 2 floors above and helped supervise the 4 kids, Chantal added. Now, through the course of this analysis, I think we've identified additional clues everyone missed. Can you think of what they are? But we'll deal with those in the next episode. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.